Hello, everybody. My name is Luis. I'm the Director of Sustainability. I haven't met all of you, but believe me, I work for you. So thank you very much for this space to give you an update on what's going on with the Green New Deal. We could go to the next one. Just a quick reminder, it was June 2019. It seems like, so many years ago, but it really was just a couple of years ago when we decided to go for a Green New Deal. Where this comes from, next please. Next, please, Julie. So it all comes from, the Green New Deal came from Washington. It was an idea, a grand plan to tackle climate change that happened in Washington. The idea was to, on one hand, address greenhouse gas emissions, but on the other, the idea was to, promote climate justice in the United States. This, started in Washington, came all the way to Ithaca. You are all familiar with the Sunrise Movement and the force that they can have when they work together. So we have a Green New Deal today. Next one, please. But then COVID hit. The next one. But then 2021. Next one, please. 2021 comes and there is this global risk outlook. We're talking about the year right after the pandemic, and still the number one risk for humanity is climate action failure. So I just want to point this out because what we're trying to do here is really a global imperative, but we're doing it here in Ithaca and we're trying to set the example. Next, please. We have a new federal government, well, not so new anymore, but they are putting everything behind the fight against climate change and climate injustice. Next one, please. The state of New York is also trying to lead the country with very aggressive targets for carbon emission reduction. Next, please. And just a week ago, a new report was published, basically saying, we're kind of late to the party. Things are changing. It's going to be very hard to avoid an increase of temperature of 2 degrees, which may cause irreversible damage to the planet. So we still need to do our part, but I believe we need to accelerate what we have to do. So we're back here, and what I want to show you now is what the Green New Deal has become in the last 5 months since I joined the city. Next, please. You do 3 in a row. Yes. So this is the Green New Deal. This is the way we're talking about the Green New Deal today. So I'm not going to read what's on the screen. What I want to say is that it truly is a mission-oriented, collaborative approach. We're talking about something almost impossible. We're talking about a moonshot. We're trying to redefine the way we relate to each other, relate to the planet. We're trying to redefine the economy. It is definitely a people-first approach. We are talking about elevating social capital. We're talking about making sure that everything that makes, all the principles that make this community unique are at the very forefront of everything that we're trying to do. We're also trying to make sure that equity, justice, and sustainable prosperity are at the very core of everything that we do. So when we set up the Green New Deal at the very beginning, we talked about sharing the benefits with members of the community and making sure that nobody was left behind. But I believe that that's not enough. What we need to do is to put it at the center. So it is a people-first approach, and what we're trying to do is to make life better for everybody who's part of this community. So that's what the Green New Deal is. It is part of a global imperative, and we're also trying to think about it differently. The role of government is not to pay for it. The role of government is not to do everything. The role of government is to articulate, to become a catalyst for investment. But what we need to do is to basically lead the charge. Next, please. Next, please. Could you do 3 in a row? Okay, so what we do, the first thing that we need to do is to identify the emissions and the source of the emissions. So we, 2 more, please. So we identified that is 400,000 metric tons of CO2. That is a lot. We're talking about 4 million cars in circulation at the same time, so you get an idea what we're talking about. I believe there is a way of mitigating this strategy, these emissions. Instead of thinking about it like the way a lot of the time we do, which is vertically thinking about sectors, we can think about it horizontally. We can think about it in terms of cross-cutting measures that could actually help the entire city, every single industry, reduce emissions. So we're thinking about energy efficiency. Just thinking about energy efficiency, we can reduce emissions by 25%. By talking about electrifying our buildings, that is replacing anything that causes combustion in your house, in every building, we can actually reduce emissions by 25%. And by decarbonizing the grid, that is making sure that all the energy that we get in the city is from renewable energy sources, then we can reduce the remaining 30%. Next one. There is still something there, one more, yeah, there, which is this 20% that, it may be difficult to get to, but, we have time. We're going to have to take a look at carbon capture technologies in the future, but we're going to do that. Next, please. So, one more, please. So in the state of New York, the emissions come from different places. It's not different for the city of Ithaca. Most of the emissions come from buildings and transportation, and some of the emissions obviously come from natural gas, which is used for part of the electricity that we receive here in the city. So the strategy is centered around those three things, but we are also considering waste management, we're also considering food systems, and a number of things that are really around this to make it possible. Next, please. Can you do 3? Okay. So the way we're looking at this is, one of the big changes perhaps is that climate change, for those who do this for a living, climate change is not really an environmental issue. It is an economic issue. It is an economic issue with horrific social and environmental ramifications. So if we treat it as an economic problem, we need to look at it for what it is. And there are, asymmetries of power, asymmetries of information, preponderant players. We have a market failure. So we're treating this, and the strategy of the Sustainability Office is to treat climate change as a market failure. And what that means is that we're going to deploy first economic, then institutional, and then regulatory instruments. And the reason why this is necessary is because first we need to give people an option. We need to give the market an option to react. That is the economic incentive. Then we as government, we need to show commitment, and then we need to come in with regulation to close everything. We're going to do this in order to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And we're going to do this also so the city has a resilient infrastructure. We're going to do it in 5 phases, but they're going to run concurrently because we don't have time to wait for one to be completed. So we're going to gather as much data. We're doing a greenhouse gas inventory. It's going to take us about a year, but we're going to do a greenhouse gas inventory to make sure that we know exactly where the emissions are coming from and whether we need any special program to tackle a particular source of emissions. We're going to have a phase when we're going to be talking about efficiency, energy efficiency, also connectivity, and circular economy. I'll explain in detail in a second. Then there's going to be a phase where we're going to be decarbonizing. We're going to try to decentralize energy resources. We're going to try to bring more renewable energy assets into the city, and we're going to try to digitalize energy. We're going to do electrification, and this goes for transportation and for buildings, and then we're going to do carbon capture. Next, please. We're going to be doing this concurrently, as I mentioned, but then at the very core of everything, there is these principles. One of them is climate justice. That is perhaps the most important thing that we're considering with everything that we do in the Green New Deal. We're talking about innovation, but innovation for economic development. Those two things go hand in hand, not separately. We're not just figuring out which technologies are the coolest and we're going to bring them here. No, we're going to figure out which innovations can actually help us achieve our target, so reach our targets, and also promote economic development. We cannot do this alone. We need to have a form of democratic engagement with the community. The type of public engagement that the Green New Deal is promoting right now is an engagement that leads to a model of shared governance that eventually could lead to participatory budget. What we're trying to do is to work with the community, not to consult with the community, work with them. And we're going to do this not in isolation, because I believe that climate change is a problem that we all share. And it is just like COVID. If one person went home, it was not going to go away. When everybody went home, we started, making progress. So it's the same thing. We need to work on something, share what we learned with others, and then make sure that everybody starts doing their part so we can achieve our goals. Next, please. This is going to be very expensive. This is going to cost $2 billion. I don't know if you thought about this when you approved the Green New Deal at the very beginning, but, this is how much it's going to cost. You shouldn't feel too bad. The cost for the United States to do what the Biden administration wants to do is $3.4 trillion. So, it's not too expensive. But then I want you to think about this. In the next 10 years, it's estimated that the U.S. is going to spend about $3 trillion in toys. So when you think about it, toys, climate change, it depends on your priorities, but I can see, where the money should go. And next, please. So the next, if you could do several, probably 5 more. Then I'll go over these very quickly. So we have actually 12 programs. So just 3 more, please. So the first thing that we're doing is, and I'm talking about programs because these are complex, tasks that we're implementing. All of them we're working with members of the community because, so far the staff for the Green New Deal is just me. So the first one is the Climate Action Plan and the Greenhouse Gas Inventory that we're working on. It's all about identifying, the source of greenhouse gases, define our targets and our mitigation strategies. We can anticipate some of those, and that's why we started working. The next one is Justice 50. Initially, the Green New Deal said that we're gonna share the benefits with members of the community. The Biden administration recommends 40% of the benefits. The state is recommending between 35 and 45% of the benefits. And these numbers don't come out of nowhere. These numbers actually need to be calculated and determined. So what we did was to look at, for example, if we were to electrify every building, if we were to retrofit every building in the city, some buildings require more work. And actually, the buildings that require more work are those that are in low and moderate income communities. And more or less, we're going to need about 50% of the budget just to address 25% of the building stock. That actually corresponds to low and moderate income communities. So it is our recommendation to have to redirect 50% of the benefits. And this has to be quantifiable. Like, we are talking about improving people's lives, and we're talking about a debt that we have with society. And we want to use this to start paying back. The next one is green workforce development. This is terribly important. Right now, we're coming back from COVID. Hopefully, we're coming back from COVID. And the economy, needs a boost. Right now, we're trying to find ways of creating jobs. We have one program right now, I'm going to talk about it in a second, which is the retrofitting and electrification of 6,000 buildings in the city. We believe that that program alone has the potential of creating 400 jobs in the next 3 years. So we are actually partnering with other organizations. We're specifically partnering with San Francisco-based Roots of Success, which is the program that Van Jones and Rachel Pinderhughes developed before Van Jones went to work with the Obama administration and became the Green Jobs Czar. This is a program that has been proven to work. It targets disadvantaged communities, but it's much broader than that. And I believe that we can bring it to Ithaca, and that can be the solution to create the workforce that we need. And here's the other thing. The Green New Deal, I'm talking about $2 billion. We're talking about a number of programs and a number of things that we need to do to make it happen. But at the same time, I'm talking about creating industries that don't exist today here. The number of jobs and the quality of the jobs that we need to create are not going to come from the industries and the businesses that we have today. We need to create new businesses, new industries, and that's going to attract qualified workers, and it's going to help us, develop the economy even further. Number 4 is really important. This is going to cost $2 billion. It's not going to come from Savante, just half of it. But what we need to do is to figure out a way of attracting investment. We need to become a catalyst for investment. So we need to identify ways in which we can actually mitigate the risk associated with investment in our community. So what we're trying to do is to find ways of unlocking and de-risking finance so we can attract investment. That is the exercise that we did. This has been the focus of my first 5 months here. It's been in identifying ways of mitigating risk so we can attract investment. Number 5 is shared governance. We are trying to establish a new model of democratic engagement. We want people to be part of the solution. We don't want to just consult them. We're also we're going to implement community choice aggregation so we can procure 100% carbon-free electricity for the entire city. We're already making progress. We're working with the town of Ithaca and Sustainable Tompkins. I believe in 12 months we'll have a proposal for the Public Service Commission, and I believe in 18 to 24 months we're going to be able to procure 100% carbon-free electricity for everybody in the city. We're also trying to figure out a way, and this is a financial issue, how we can deploy more renewable energy. If we were to electrify the city, we were to bring electric vehicles to the city, the load, basically the pressure that is going to put in the distribution circuits in the city, is going to be much greater than we have today. It was not designed for that. So what we need to do is to put more renewable energy within city boundaries so we reduce the dependency that we will have on the transmission and distribution grid. So that's part of the reason why we need at least 1 megawatt of rooftop or ground-mounted solar PV projects in the city. We're already working and talking to a couple of developers about potentially deploying even 3 times that within the next couple of years. Then number 8, that is the start today. It's the Energy Efficiency and Electrification Program. As I mentioned, the first 5 months, and I consulted with the mayor, I worked with the staff of the planning department, and we tapped onto some private investors, and we were able to raise $100 million to deploy a program so we could retrofit 1,600 buildings within city boundaries, and also replace anything that does combustion, that is heating systems, water heaters, clothes dryers, replace them with heat pumps that would also provide air conditioning during the summer. We believe that the $100 million that we have will be enough for 1,600 buildings. There is a soft commitment from investors to invest $250 million in the city. So there is the potential for this to be completely funded by private sources, and the conditions. We're not mortgaging the town. We're not doing anything that will put at risk the town. This is something that we work together with the mayor. We discuss with the city attorney, with the comptroller. So everybody's on board and understands that the risk for the city is practically zero. We have a program to attract electric vehicles to the city and deploy the right infrastructure. We're talking about deploying 2-wheel and 4-wheel light-duty electric vehicles and charging infrastructure. Just very quickly, what we're trying to do is very unique and it's different. For example, one idea that we are running by some EV manufacturers and by a private equity fund is the idea of separating the battery from the vehicle and being able to sell second-hand electric vehicles for $1,000, literally for $1,000, a second-hand electric vehicle, and then lease the battery for $80 a month. So we are, in that way, we would be able to put second-hand electric vehicles in the hands of the low and moderate income community. So that way, we no longer are looking at the privileged ones that could have an electric and pay for an electric vehicle. We're also looking at the type of charging infrastructure that we could have. And I know some of you have asked for fast charging infrastructure. But fast charging infrastructure, for example, is only beneficial for luxury cars. So we're trying to identify what is it that the regular car, electric vehicle car, can need in terms of infrastructure, so we can actually have a plan to deploy infrastructure. Eventually, we will deploy all types of infrastructure that is needed. We need to figure out a way of doing it and a way of paying for it. Alternative to fossil fuels, not everything can be electrified. We need to figure out a way of removing fossil fuels from some activities, but that is for future undertaking. And then solid waste management, we want to implement a circular economic model. And then for food systems, we're also working with the community, trying to find a way of identifying how we need to handle the food scraps and food donations law in New York State. And we're talking about things like extended responsibility in the upstream side of the food production, those who actually exceed the amount of waste, the average amount of waste, for example, in restaurants. Next one, please. Where are these several? more. 2 more. Thank you. So anyway, this is the implementation plan. Don't get lost with the colors. It's 10 years of work. What you see at the top are the foundational elements of the Green New Deal strategy. This is what we need to make whatever is underneath happen. We need to have a climate action plan. We need to have a model for climate justice. We need to have the workforce and the financial risk mitigation strategy and a way of engaging the community. We have a plan, and what you see is the way we're going to implement this, and at the very end of every line, what you see is the deliverable for every project that we have in the Ithaca Green New Deal. So we started working and we are running. There is a sense of urgency. Things are going to change in Washington. Things may change in Albany. So we need to do things as fast as possible. Also, climate change is a reality, so we need to get going. So, next one. Just a couple of slides more, I promise you. So we are working with the community. We created a series of working groups because I believe that's the only way we can get this done. These working groups are associated with every pillar of the Green New Deal. including international cooperation that we haven't talked about. Next one, please. Much, but I'll explain in a second. We are preparing a steering committee. I believe that this is a project with and for the community. So I believe members of the community should be able to steer the Green New Deal. So right now, and I believe she joined us on the call, Anna Sims-Bartel, who will, I am proposing for chairwoman of the steering committee. And then every other person in the steering committee, Nia Non, Alex Travis, Richard Rivera, Ken Schlatter, Susan Holland, who is here, Hector Chang, and David Kay have confirmed that they want to be part of the steering committee. And we are waiting response from 2 other persons, hoping that they will agree to be part of the steering committee of the Green New Deal. We believe that these people are not only representative of different parts of the community, but they also have the understanding necessary to guide the project, which is on one hand very technical, but on the other very social. Next one, please. So just a couple of things that we have done. On June 24th, the mayor presented at a UN-sponsored event where other countries were talking about ratifying their commitment to the Paris Agreement. Right now, if you go to the United Nations Energy Compact website, you will see that the only city in the entire planet that has committed to reduce emissions beyond what the federal government is doing is the city of Ithaca. We're the only city in the world today. We might not be the only one by the end of the year, but right now we're setting the pace and we're setting an example for the rest of the country and perhaps for the rest of the world. Because of this, there has been relationships with different countries and different cities in different countries. The mayor shared the stage with, where was it, Mayor? Nambia, I think. Yeah, it was.
Checks out. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, I apologize, but it was very interesting conversation, about what we're trying to do in the United States and in Africa, for example. Next, please. And then we released an RFP recently to hire a program manager that could, administer the project for energy efficiency retrofitting and thermal load electrification for initially for 1,600 buildings, but in phase 2 for a total of 6,000 buildings in the city of Ithaca. It is the most ambitious program that exists in the United States for removing carbon emissions from buildings. This is, on one hand, very cool, to be honest, but on the other, it resulted in a lot of attention. We got an article in The Guardian, and that's the 4th article that was printed on this topic. It was just the more visible one. We've been working with the local media too, and what that article says, it's very interesting, and I want to clarify. They are not saying this is this has a 100% chance of succeed. What they're saying is it's very difficult, good for these guys, they're going to need all the help they can get. So that's pretty much what we're into right now. Next, please. And just to finish, so what we're doing right now, it's a project that, we're calling 1,000 because we're trying to do 1,000 electrified buildings, create 1,000 jobs, electrify 1,000 vehicles, and have 1,000 conversations with the community in 1,000 days. That's it. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Two challenges we have inside City Hall now is, one, how do we keep up with Luis's brilliance and passion on this topic, and how do the rest of the staff manage to match his pace? Second is, how do we fund all of this, which is, of course, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. But I think in this upcoming budget, we could take several bites out of this elephant. So we're developing that budget right now, but thought this was an important time to get an update from Luis in advance of that. Any questions or discussion? Yes, George.
Thank you, Luis. This is pretty exciting. When you say $2 billion, are you talking about for the city of Ithaca?
Yes, for the city of Ithaca. Well, and the town of Ithaca together.
My excitement surrounds the green jobs. In the 10 years I've been on this body, the city has reduced the amount of industrially zoned space in the city in a very large way. So do you have an idea of how much space these industries will need, and is there a target for how many and how many good-paying jobs they'll create?
Yeah, we're estimating that. I mean, when we talk about energy efficiency retrofitting and thermal load electrification, you know, it's a lot. We're talking about a number of things that need to happen. For example, we're talking about if the whole city is electrified, if every building is electric, every car is electric, there's going to be a need to interact with the electric grid. So grid interacting technologies are very advanced technologies. We're going to be the only city in America to have it. So naturally, we're going to attract companies that are developing those technologies. We're installing first and second generation, equipment like heat pumps, for example. So it's about the installation, it's about the maintenance, it's about the remote administration of some of these elements. So there's going to be software industries, there's going to be hardware industries, there's going to be construction. We've been contacted by a large number of companies. For example, there is this company that is willing to donate an incredible amount of products so we can have also solar buildings. They actually embed solar panels in the cement, so they can actually offer that for some cities, so some buildings, so we can test it out and prove that it works. So we've been contacted already by a large number of organizations and companies that wanna do this. So I don't know what space we will need. I don't know how many jobs. I can see that we're going to go over 1,000 in the whole process of the Green New Deal. Our objective right now is 400 in the next 3 years, and it's going to be all kinds of jobs. The program for workforce development that we are proposing, we're actually trying to develop a different type of curriculum, because we don't want people to have to transition from a blue-collar job to a blue-green collar job. So what we need is for people to have the opportunity to continue installing solar panels if that's what they like, but also to move into software perhaps and manage installations. We want people to be able to choose a path. So the workforce development program that we are trying to set up with Roots of Success, with the help of Cornell Cooperative Extension, is really for people to develop a career without having to go to college. So that's
I think that's great. I think one of the challenges for us is to make sure we have space for these things to happen.
Thank you. I've got Robin, then Cynthia.
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I said Cynthia.
Well, Luis, this is very exciting. It is a lot of information that you've brought forward. The vision is dynamic, it's exciting, it's engaging, completely out of the box. So I really appreciate your energy and enthusiasm. I'd love it if we could fold in our existing infrastructure systems. I notice you have the installation of solar panels. One of the things living up in our area, we can think about solar panels, but we also need batteries, right? Because at night and during the wintertime, that has limited use. I'd love to see the use of our dams and reservoirs as an energy battery that might be available if we could be able to find funding that would support the dredging of our reservoirs, clearing that up, using it as an energy battery, I think has incredible potential. Just a little plug in one of your ideas, see if that might be something that might stick. As we talk about money and so on, and you ended your slide with the request for proposals for a project manager. So I believe that request for proposals has gone out. Is that project manager a city staff person that has already been approved in our budget or is for next year's budget? How is that project manager financed? And I apologize that I have completely forgotten if this is something that we've already approved.
Sure. No. It is for a program manager. What we did was to raise the necessary capital to upfront, the necessary money to do the retrofitting and electrification in all of these buildings. Also, the conditions that we're trying to set up for this allows us to create a financing facility to develop very specific financial products, so we could have 0% interest loans to members of the community. And in some cases, we go even beyond that. It would be equivalent to negative. We can actually offer an economic incentive for people to take on this program. We are asking for a program manager, which is a company that could, on one hand, manage that amount of money, set up a financing facility, create the financial products. What the city is offering is giving them the status of recognized contractor for the city to implement the vision of the Green New Deal. And at this moment, there is no hiring. We are selecting. I use the word hiring. We are selecting a program manager. I've been working with the city attorney. We're going to develop a contract. So by selecting them, they commit to help us implement this vision. But there is not going to be a transfer of money from the city. What we want to do, and this is something that I've been talking to the mayor, is when you get money from private equity, it comes with an associated cost of capital. And that cost of capital at the end represents interest rates if you were to develop a financial product, either leasing or lending, it's going to have a cost. So there are a number of things that you can do to reduce risk. So we're actually implementing all of them. But there is one of them, which is a loan guarantee. We cannot provide, as the city, we cannot provide a loan guarantee for a $100 million program because the city would be on the hook for far too much money. So we went to NYSERDA, we went to the state, and the state has a program where they can create a loan loss reserve that basically is a credit enhancement for people that don't have good credit, and that works as a loan guarantee. It works as a form of insurance for the contractor. Then there is the element that if we are distributing risk that way, NYSERDA takes some of the risk, the contractor takes some of the risk. If we were able, as the city, to create something similar to this loan loss reserve, or if we were able to create through an Ithaca electrification fund, to have enough capital, so that capital could be used to cover the interest, that money would be multiplied by 20 in terms of the impact it could have. So that is, we have right now working with the investors, we managed to bring this down to 2 or 3% of $100 million. So if you think about it in those terms, then, perhaps for the life of the program, just in interest is going to be, $7 million for the $100 million, once you put it to work. What if we were to provide $7 million? What if we were to provide $1 million to cover the interest rates for everybody that qualifies as low and moderate income? So if we were to use, for example, ARPA funds to cover that, we could literally offer not only to low income, but to low, moderate, and moderate income people 0% interest loans for retrofitting and electrification. It is something that Minneapolis is doing right now. Minneapolis put all the money from ARPA, all the money from COVID relief into electrification. So they are developing a program over there. So it is a complicated matter. I don't think it's easy, and I think there are a lot of priorities in the city. So I understand, that it's not an easy answer, but if we could put any amount of money towards this program, we would multiply the impact at least by 20.
I see the appeal as you describe it. Obviously this is going to take a high amount of due diligence to make sure that, because basically what you're proposing is, once selected, it would be a city-backed sole source financer of energy improvements to low and moderate income people, using a financing scheme which is not a traditional loan, and so perhaps does not come with the standard disclosures and education of the individual that is required by law as if you were to go and get a traditional loan on your home. How does a sophisticated how does someone who is a low and moderate income, would they be able to have the skills to understand what they might be committing themselves to? And once you have the city's stamp of approval on that, obviously we're giving certain guarantees to that person that they're not incidentally perhaps putting their situation at risk. I think there's a lot of responsibility and obligation that comes with this process. I was unaware that the city was putting its name or its commitment behind doing something like this. So I was kind of surprised to hear about the RFP having gone out. And, you know, I feel very cautious in proceeding in this way. I understand, and I'd like to learn more, but I hope that we are bring in individuals who are highly expert in these types of financial structures to make sure that in this selection process we are truly providing a service and guarantee to our community members that in participating in this, that they aren't taking unnecessary risk.
Yeah, it is a regulated financing facility. It has to comply with all the federal requirements, state requirements. What we don't have is the overhead that a bank or a credit union would have. But it's regulated and it's going to be open book, so there's going to be a lot of transparency. And in terms of education and outreach, that is something that, you know, we are definitely working on. We don't have the program fully defined, but yeah, we're working on you know, educating everybody, because it's an opt-in program. You know, nobody's going to be forced into it. So we are going to try to present it to the public. We're going to try to present it to them, saying like, you know, we can do this, and we can do, for example, 0% interest. And we're going to try to, you know, make sure that everybody understands. But I do hear you, and we'll take the necessary steps to make sure that, you know, everything is done the right way.
Yeah, so definitely if you could share that information. And just a process question, did this come through committee as a pre-approved decision that the city was entering into this? Did I miss it, is my question.
No, I don't think so.
So any information you can share, I think it would be good to be transparent about what it is exactly that the city is proposing and putting forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There is Anna Bartel, who will chair the steering committee. She is the member of the community that will help steer the Green New Deal. The proposed scheme is that the steering committee would be that watchdog on behalf of the community and interacting directly with Common Council, not through me. And Anna Bartel has agreed to chair this community-driven steering committee, and she's here, and I believe that she's prepared like a minute statement if you wanna.
Thank you. Hold on, Anna, we can't hear you. Hold on.
Okay, try now.
Try again.
Now, Anna.
No.
Okay.
That's okay. Should I just...
No, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yay. All right, there seems to be a long delay, so I'm going to try not to listen to myself. Can you actually hear me?
Yes.
Yes, victory is ours. I don't need to talk for long. I just wanted to say hello, to share my enthusiasm for being part of this process. And I'm really appreciating hearing both the really energetic vision and, this whole new universe of possibilities, and the caution and the wisdom and the commitment to process. And so I just wanted to say that's a big piece of what I'm excited about in this work, jointly holding our feet to the fire of our own commitments that include transparency and participation and community benefit, and being part of something that is, hopefully quite literally going to change the world. So it's an exciting time. I'm grateful to be here and look forward to more conversations with all of you as we move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much. All right, Luis, thank you very much for this. Oh, yes, Graham, you've got a...
Thank you, Luis. Yeah, I'll second my colleague's comments there about you unloaded an awful lot of information for us. Some of it I hadn't expected. I'm looking forward to playing the tape again at half speed so I can go through the information. But I think it is important to as we've just said, have this to be a transparent, if we're working with the community to make sure they understand through us or by themselves the actual process to become involved in this. As we know, many countries have set all these very laudable goals for addressing climate change, and many of the targets have been missed. So one of the things I would like to emphasize is that if you have these targets, and I really like those specific targets that you've outlined, I think it's important for council to hear on a regular basis, I don't know what that is, maybe every 6 months or something, how progress is going and what the roadblocks might be, because I think you have to maintain this kind of enthusiasm over the long term, and that means showing people how we're doing, I think. So it's really important, I think, for everybody to get a sense of the successes, and the $100 million sounds great, but I don't know how that was raised, what it's going to be used for, how the buildings are going to be. So I think I would like to make sure that we hear regular updates on these programs, because they're exciting. But I still am not sure, kind of, when I hear creative financial instruments, I get nervous. And so I think I want to make sure that I understand and my colleagues understand how this fits in with the city operations, basically. So, but thank you for the presentation. It's really interesting.
Sure. Thank you. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think yes, we should continue these, if not monthly, close to monthly. I think in the 5 months you've been here, this is your third presentation maybe to council. So we will continue that pace and possibly add some committee meetings in case you get bored, Luis. Thank you for all your work you're doing to solve. This is the largest problem of our time. So we've got to do, we've got to take extraordinary steps to solve it.
Can we get a copy of the slide presentation?
Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you. If you just email that out to council. Thank you. And he puts one of those together like every week. It's really amazing, the productivity we're seeing. So can't wait to see him surrounded by more staff. We'll move now to public comment. I'm sorry, do we have a municipal